Well, hello. Welcome to the Carbon Series podcast hosted by US Energy. I'm your host, Jason Marmon, and I am here with Bryan Eagle, the CEO and founder of Glanris Water Technologies. Is that correct? Or Glanris?
Just Glanris.
Just Glanris. Okay. Well, you're a water technology company,
Right.
I guess is a good way to put that. And so Glanris has developed a new novel water filtration system that is low cost and is actually developed with rice husks, right?
Yes.
And so you want to tell us a little bit about what you got going on. I'm super excited to have you on because this is something that I've been, thinking about as an environmental professional and someone who is really involved and engaged. And I think the two most important things for environmental quality are water and air.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, what tell us a little bit about this novel technology that you have and why it's important.
Great. Sure. Well, I'll just jump in. So the technology was really developed by a professor at a local university here. He's the real inventor, founder of this, Dr. Lin. And he was really trying to address the question asked of him by the Army Corps of Engineers: what can we do with all this ag waste that we generate across the river in Arkansas? I'm in Memphis, and Arkansas is just across the river here.
Okay.
And being a chemist and being an environmental engineer, he went right to, maybe we can create some sort of biochar from this that we can use for water filtration. And biochar's not new; it's been around for tens of thousands of years. Ever since lightning first struck a tree somewhere, we've had biochar. So it's not new, but what he was really looking at is, what can we do with this to make it more efficient, more scalable, and address some of the wider issues in water filtration. And he looked at 4 dozen different ag wastes and really landed on rice hulls for a couple of reasons. Number one, rice hulls are the largest ag waste product in the world. 218 billion pounds of this stuff are generated every year. And it's a major waste problem for the mills that take, the rice grain and turn it into the rice that you can eat. And part of that process is busting off the shell or husk or hull or whatever, people call it different things. But that's about 20% of the rice is that hull. So you're talking about a major waste source for these milling companies. So number one, it's a big problem, and so that made it attractive. Number two, second reason he liked it is because rice hulls are very thin, and so it means most of the filtration capabilities that you see with activated carbon and with other filtration media has to do with the surface area. And rice hulls have a very high surface area to volume ratio. And they have some unique properties. A lot of the other sort of activated carbons, think about them as sort of a sponge ball. And what you filter has to get inside to be filtered. And it's all done through adsorption, which means kind of like static cling. These organic particulates stick to the surface area. But what happens with that ball is that if that outside gets covered with oils or gets clogged up, you don't get on the inside. Well, ours rice hulls are like a sheet of paper. So that surface area that does all the filtering, it's always exposed. So you have much faster kinetics than you do with traditional activated carbon. And lastly, the thing that was kind of unique is that he figured out, because of the unique chemistry of rice hulls, how to add an ion exchange capability to that so that now not only do you pull organics, which is what activated carbon does, but you can pull dissolved metals like lead and
Heavy metals.
hexavalpromium and all this bad stuff. And so those three things, the fact that it was the largest waste product in the world and tackling that was a big issue, the fact that it had potentially faster kinetics, or it did have faster kinetics, was the second, and third, the surface area, the ion exchange capability was really the third element that got him excited about it. And then he brought in me to help sort of figure out how to turn this into a company, and that's what we've done. And so, just to clarify on your point, we're not making the filters themselves.
Okay.
We're making the media that goes into the filters.
Gotcha.
And since we've launched this company in July. When I say launched the company, got it funded in July of 2019. We've gotten a patent on our process, and just last month we began volume production here in the Memphis area.
Gotcha. So Dr. Lin really started it in March of 2018, and the reason, I guess, that's the same time we started U.S. Energy, our nonprofit. So that's a weird serendipity type of thing. But it's interesting that he picked rice hulls for the fact that rice is the staple food commodity of the developing world, and 50% of the world's population, rice is that staple. So I'm sure you have obviously global implications with this medium. And where would you say you're at right now? I mean, we kind of talked a little bit earlier that you just overcame some hurdles on certification with NSF. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so you asked two questions, one about the global, and then about filtration. So I'll deal with the global first.
Okay.
I mean, that's really what got me excited about this. I didn't really understand a lot of the chemistry because that's not my background. But as a serial entrepreneur, what I saw that was really attractive about this is that this is a global product. Everywhere they grow rice, they've got mills, they've got the same waste problem, and typically they also have the same needs for water filtration. So, it was that we could pretty quickly expand this internationally, and we've already got today tests that we're doing in India and South Africa. We've got a lot of interest in Europe, which is really looking for green technologies like ours, and circular economy products like ours to launch. So, where we are today is as I said, we just got started with our manufacturing today. We're just now doing volume production. So we're just starting in the US here. By the end of this year, we'll be expanding into Europe and India. And then I think you'll see expansion pretty quickly thereafter into a handful of countries that make rice. So you asked about the certification. I mean, we're as a company, Glanris is really focused on the three major water filtration markets, which are industrial, residential, and municipal. Initially, we're focused on the industrial market, which is filtering the wastewater that companies create in the manufacturing of their product. And we're really trying to help them to filter it to the point that they can reuse it. That's really the goal here, so that you pump it once and you use it many times. But whether they're reusing it or whether they're discharging it, you need that water to be clean. And so today, that's our initial market. No certification is required. You just need to be able to do it cost effectively. And so far, our customers have found that we're very cost effective. The residential market, which is the really big exploding market today, requires you to get a certification to make sure that it's safe for drinking water. And we've gotten our NSF 61 clearance letter already. which says that, we meet all the chemistry tests, that we don't leach anything toxic into the water, and that we can filter water to EPA standards. And we're just now doing the second part to get full certification, which is the audit. So we'll be done with that by this summer. And then we've got a number of companies that make, water pitcher filters and whole home filtration systems that are very excited about us. And the reason they're excited about us is that today, if you open up a Brita filter,
Yep.
and you take that cartridge and you spill it out on the table, what you'll see is about 60% of that is an ion exchange resin bead. And it's a small little, size of a BB, but it's a microplastic, and it's a petroleum-based microplastic. And what those ion exchange resin beads do is they pull the dissolved metals. And obviously, Brita and others want to be able to do that, because if you've got, metals in your water, you want to filter them out. That's part of the attraction of having that kind of filter.
Yep.
And really the only technology that they have today to do that are these microplastics. Well, we can help them replace all of that microplastic with something that's completely green and sustainable. And that's what's getting people excited, is getting away from these petroleum-based products and really making a much greener footprint.
Well, I think you have a double benefit that goes along with that, because you're solving a big agricultural waste problem by using these hulls, husks, and I think you had told me that the production process creates 98% less CO2 by using your medium as opposed to those plastics that you're talking about. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. So the numbers, you always have to give a lot of qualifications to
Yeah.
any
Okay.
of these analyses, but I don't know, since I don't make that, I don't really know what the exact numbers are, but we've had students that have come to us who have done this analysis, and really they're looking at things like how much energy is used in producing it.
Okay.
And really it kind of comes from that number. We use about 98% less energy ultimately in the
Okay. Gotcha.
of our product, and they tie that directly to carbon dioxide. So that's where those numbers come from. But yeah, it's an order of magnitude or two less in terms of carbon dioxide. And again, compared to an ion exchange resin bead, that's a microplastic. So when that goes to, when it's done and it goes to the landfill, that's never going to break down. It's it's not an organic product. It is, and if it ends up getting spilled somewhere, it ends up in the fish, and it's a bad thing. We need to get away from it. Ours, because we've now taken that carbohydrate product and turned it into an activated carbon. When ours gets used to filter this medium, it goes to the landfill, we're now sequestering carbon. And that is probably one of the most important tools that we have today in addressing climate change, is pulling that carbon out of the carbon cycle and sequestering it is going to help us get to some of the numbers we're targeting, and IPCC and the UN are targeting faster than just sort of normal abatement processes, because when we're sequestering that carbon's going to stay in a stable carbon format for thousands of years, which is great. I mean, it helps us address these climate change issues.
Very, very, I guess, far-reaching implications. And does your medium address some of the solutions in the UN's Sustainable Development Goals?
Absolutely. So, we're focused on certainly the water and sanitation goals. I think the smart cities and sustainable cities is another one of the goals that we touch on. Certainly dealing with any of the climate change issues. You touch a number of those. Sustainable agriculture is another goal that we also help with. And one of the things that we're doing is today they pay to have those holes hauled away. We're actually paying the farmers for those holes.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
what we're hoping is that that helps them, that increase to these farmers, particularly as we look at in India and Kenya and Vietnam and other places that we're looking at now, that those payments will help those farmers do more sustainability or interact or input more sustainability goals into their farming. So if you give them the incentives to do that, hopefully that will not only raise their standard of living, but also make their processes that they've got more sustainable. And so those are, again, we touch a lot of them, but certainly the water is the key one.
Yeah, I mean, it just, a lot of things are going off in my mind on the applications for something like this. And, my group here at US Energy, we just started working with NRCS, Department of Agriculture,
Right.
thinking of the problems that they have with cleaning out irrigation, type of water. And they spend millions, if not tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on that. And they're still having, tremendous problems with that. So, as you guys develop, there's things that and even when you're talking about frack water in oil and gas, like major problem as well on, cleaning that water at a low cost, highly efficient, processes is something that, I think a lot of industries are starting to pay a lot of attention to. So, I think you guys are really onto something special here. And so, that's why, we reached out to you guys and you guys joined the Carbon Summit, because we're looking, our platform is to identify, promote, and then try to help you guys scale these solutions, to make them mainstream. And so, where are you guys at in this process? You kind of alluded to it earlier, but how far are you away of making this, mainstream available, especially for, some of those applications, whether it's residential, whether it's industrial, if I have people that are interested in your tech, if they reach out, like, where are you at in that process, I guess you could say?
Yeah. So normally I would be at our offices, which is a 60,000 square foot production facility, but I'm dealing with issues at home today.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm sort of stuck here, but we've got a large production facility right now. We can produce about 3 tons a day of material. We've got the factory space to be able to grow that to 20 tons a day. And so that's the path that we're on. As we start to get more interest and more customer involvement, we'll start ramping up production. And then, as I mentioned, we're again, to keep some of the sustainability goals, we don't want to just be producing here and shipping around the world. We want to be making this stuff locally. So for the European market, we'll make it in Europe. For the Indian market, we'll make it in India, et cetera. And we'll start looking at those production facilities in those places later this year. We actually spent a lot of time during COVID because a lot of the pilots we had geared up to get started last March on a test basis, all got put on hold until the fourth quarter. So we just spent 2020 focusing on our production and making that more efficient. And so the system that we turned up starting just last month is much more efficient than we originally designed, and very low cost. So it's not it's something that we can take to smaller mills and smaller production sites and still be able to produce a significant amount of that water filtration media. And that again, lowering the cost of production, making it easier to roll out around the world is what's going to get this technology out there. And so what do we need? I mean, we just we need more test sites and more customers that are excited about going green. And I think every major industrial player today that either uses water to make their product or water somewhere in their manufacturing process, needs to be looking at greener technologies, because they're obviously a major contributor to a lot of the water issues that we're facing right now. And all of these companies have chief sustainability officers that are very interested in making sure that their companies are kind of doing the right thing for the planet going forward. And it's right now it's just about getting the word out. As a small early stage company, this is what we got to do.
For sure,
we got to get the word out.
Well, oftentimes I've found personally that companies like yours doing great work. It's often hard to tell your own story in a very authentic, kind of nonpartisan way, because oftentimes people feel like, whether it's right or wrong, they feel like they're kind of, bragging or, whatever. It's like, hey, look at us, when we found the opportunity to say, okay, if we come in and we try to help you tell your story, it's usually a little bit easier to receive, and so what I'm thinking about is we have a connection with Nestle, very high level connection with Nestle. And so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to send it, over to them, over in Europe, where you're talking about. And, it's actually with their VP of Global Affairs. And so we're going to say, hey, who do we need to talk to see if you guys would be interested in this? We're actually planning the sequel to the Carbon Summit in The Hague, Netherlands. Working with the Convention Bureau over there, working with the university that we can't, quite talk about quite yet. But that event is either, end of this year or beginning of next year. And so if you guys, obviously we're going to be, monitoring what you got going on and, trying to help you scale this. But I see it as such a no-brainer, easy solution with what you guys, the work that you guys have done. And so I want to, give you a shout out and give you some kudos, for the work that's being done, because it just makes total sense in my mind. So hopefully, by doing things like this, it helps get the word out. We help drive some traffic, and hopefully, there's some inquiries that come out of this that are very positive. But an interesting thing, like you guys are in Memphis, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Is it true or is it not true that Memphis may have some of the best groundwater in the United States?
Yeah, it does. It has. I think it has the best water in the U.S. I mean, we're sitting on top of an aquifer, a very large aquifer, and we don't even treat the water that we pump out of the ground. And it's a bit of an interesting story. I mean, Memphis really got put on the map again because they discovered this artesian well, and because right after I guess in the late 1800s, we went through a series of yellow fever and cholera epidemics to the point that Memphis lost its charter, and it was shut down after the, I think, fifth yellow fever epidemic in 10 years. The city basically in the late 1800s was pretty much, gone. And a guy who was actually making ice was looking for water and decided to drill down to drill a well because we'd been, most cities at that time were pulling water from the rivers and, trying to sort of clean that up. And then they were taking the water that they pulled from that and putting it in tanks that would sit and grow bugs and, all of the malaria and flies that would grow in all of that. It just wasn't very sanitary, and that's what caused these problems. So this guy drilled a well, and all of a sudden water gushed up like an oil gusher, and it was very pure water. Everybody got excited about it, and actually water at that time was a great economic driver for the city.
Yep.
And just one more shout out to the Memphis folks here. They at that same time they figured out that what they also needed to do was to handle the sewage side of the equation better. So Memphis was one of the first cities in the U.S. to separate stormwater and sewage, because what had happened before is those were in the same channels, and so therefore when it rained, you really didn't want to be downstream from the city.
Yeah.
It was pretty nasty stuff. So they were able to, again, very early on, one of the first cities in the U.S. to do this was to really separate those and create a sewage treatment system. And that combination of clean water and sanitary practices really led to the revitalization of Memphis and its growth. And now we just need to make sure that we protect the aquifer that we have here, and lots of discussion now about making sure that we do that, both in terms of making sure that we're not contaminating the groundwater and the surface water to the point that it leaches into the aquifer. That's a whole other issue. Yeah. And then you have to start taking a look at who the users are. And in here, 70% of the water pumped out of the ground goes to agriculture. And really that's and then about 20% of the water that we pump out of the ground goes to industrial users, and only about 10% goes to households. So if you really want to address the water inequality issues here, low flush toilets and short showers aren't going to get you there, because we're only 10% of the consumption. So if we cut back everything by 10%, we've only reduced the water by 1%. So but if you go to agriculture and you look at, well, how can we use river water? How can we reuse some of this water? How can we do a better job of making sure that the irrigation water gets used and doesn't get sprayed up in the air, but goes right to the roots? Those are things that we've seen in other places in the world. They've been able to take that number from 70%, down to 50% or lower of the total water used. And if you start doing, reuse of that, or pulling it from, from surface water, rivers, et cetera, you can get that number way down in terms of the amount that you're pulling, out of your aquifers. And I think, again, that's a place where we could come in, because if we can work using our very low cost filtration media to take river water and other of this surface water and filter it for agricultural needs, which would be great, since right across the river,
so many applications
is this is the ag belt here. Yeah. for us up and down the Mississippi, and we've got a lot of water in the Mississippi and the Missouri and all the rivers that flow through here that certainly can be used for agricultural and non-potable uses, as long as we filter it to pull out the toxic metals, which we do, and all of those other organic contaminants, which we do as well.
Well, where I'm from, at the top of the Missouri, where the Missouri meets the Yellowstone, Williston, North Dakota, we're in the big, heavy industrial area that, has really changed, tremendously over the last, 10 years. But my friends and colleagues, Gabe Brown and Ray Archuleta, they're really leading the charge on regenerative ag. And that's really transitioning away from the industrial commercial model to the regenerative model. And if you just look at water absorption, I mean, it's night and day. Like, to where, the old model, the water just runs off, doesn't even really have a chance to absorb into the soil. So when you combine, your system of water filtration with regenerative ag, I mean, I think we're talking about, 20% reduction in water use, easy, easy. And so
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah, so just a point on that, most of the world burns their rice hulls. So, if you ever go to, Mumbai or Delhi, New Delhi in the fall, you can't breathe because of the smoke. And all of that is from the burning of rice hulls.
Yeah.
And they burn it in the fields because the thought is, well, this ash content, will help me in regenerating the fields.
Nutrients and
But it's actually not the case, because rice hulls, when you burn them, what you're left with is the silica, which is like a micro sand, which is hydrophobic, which means that it repels water. And so they, about after they burn it, about 80% of what's left there to 90% is a microsilica. And when they till that into the soil, all they're doing is promoting water runoff in the soil. Now, with our media, again, we're focused on water filtration, but if you use that to filter things that are non-toxic, or you want to use part of that media just for soil augmentation, because we pyrolyze this and turn it into a kind of biochar, that media retains nutrients in it. It holds the water. So when you plow that back into the soil, it becomes much, much better soil going forward. This is the perfect soil is one that has a fairly high carbon content in it, particularly when that carbon content is holding water, holding nitrogen, holding phosphorus, retaining those nutrients, making them available for plant growth. So it's and you were talking about USDA earlier. They've just now started to provide funding to put biochar down. I think it's like 4 cubic meters per acre is what they're paying for. And I really hope that promotes a lot more generation of biochar. And again, we'd be happy to also provide our media, even in a virgin form, into those applications, because again, you're sequestering the carbon once it's in the ground. That's good for the overall climate change issues that we're trying to address. Plus, it retains water, retains nutrients, and it gives you a much better growing environment.
Well, just to go along with what you're saying, at the Carbon Summit here in June at the College of Idaho, which is Idaho's oldest educational institution, it's really kind of ag focused. It's an agricultural community. We have the state conservationist as one of our speakers, here with NRCS. And so what we'll probably end up doing is, after we get off this conversation, me and you can dialogue, you can send me some things, and then we'll send it over to them. And then we also have the Idaho Conservation League, which is, one of the big associations here. And to where if you're familiar with, Albertsons or, some of the food companies that are here, they're based here in Boise. And so, I think there's a lot of crossover, and there's a lot of opportunities to where we can get this in front of some people and say, hey, what do you guys think of this? And, would you be willing to test this out? And
Yeah.
so I think that's where our real value comes in, is catalyzing some of those connections. And this is a real, a real great case study for, the platform that we're building. So when we say sustainable system design coordination, this is exactly our model right here, to where we identify you guys, or organizations like yours. They reach out to us and they say, hey, we have this novel tech, we're new, we're just getting started, we need help with some awareness. And so from an awareness standpoint, where does somebody go if they're interested in, connecting with you guys, learning more about, your organization? Is it a website? Is it a,
Yeah.
you know,
So our website, www.glanris, GLANRIS.com, glanris.com. That's the place to start.
okay,
And from there, there's lots of information on the website, and certainly contact
contact
information,
information. Okay.
all
And
there.
then And then I'll include some of those links and stuff on the YouTube. And once we
Great.
share it to LinkedIn, obviously it'll be the same, some of the same things. But let's end with, what is Glanris? What does that actually mean?
So Glanris is Irish for clean rice.
Okay,
Glanris.
Glanris. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that'd be appropriate ending question, but for the sake of time, like our audience, sometimes I get a little long-winded, I can ramble, because I have so many things in my mind that I see opportunities with what you guys are doing. And again, I'm super excited to have you guys on board and involved in the Carbon Summit, and we'll be talking here, and hopefully we can drive some traffic for you guys, and provide some opportunities.
Great. Well, I'm excited about it. And, I think now is the time for, action and sustainability. And, just to come back to one point, a lot of times when people hear green and sustainability, they go, oh, this is going to be slower, it's going to be a lot more expensive. We're faster acting and we're much lower cost than the alternative. So, this is one of those win-win-win situations where you have an opportunity to really do the right thing for the environment and the planet, yet still help yourself out by having a faster acting, lower cost process.
Awesome. So what I guess, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything that I've missed? Sometimes I maybe skip some of those things that I should be asking. I get really excited about this stuff.
No, I appreciate so much your enthusiasm. We need a lot more of you guys out there promoting sustainable solutions, and we'll get there faster. So
Man, it's easy. It's easy. It's I mean, this just costs a little bit of time, and it's important work. So it kind of aligns with the things that my impetus to do things. It's really motivational, and I think inspiration and hope, and all those things are what society needs. And especially us millennials, I mean, we're chomping at the bit to work on solutions. So it's kind of difficult for us young people to go out and find those opportunities. So I decided to create them, and it's working. It's working thus far, and I think we're building a great community. And so we're excited to have you a part of that community, and hopefully we provide a lot of value. That's my goal.
great. Well, I'm again, thank you for asking me, and pleasure to be here, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Bryan Eagle, CEO of Glanris. Thank you so much for being on the Carbon Series podcast, and we will definitely be in touch. So check us out on YouTube and give us a like. Make sure you comment if this message resonates with you, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks, Bryan.
All right. See you.